Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing hopefully a fairly quick unscripted video, a brief overview of the two new books which I got in the mail yesterday. As I promised, I am going to be reviewing the final books written, not edited, by the late fraud Dr. Beatrice Sparks. And so here's Kim Empty Inside, which was published in 2002, and Almost Lost, published in 1996. I started reading this, I think maybe like 2016, 2017, thereabouts, but I had to return it to the library. I don't even think I got forget about 50 pages. I don't even remember. Maybe did I even get 25 pages in? It was that bad. It was awful, even by her crappy usual standards. But of course, the only reason I read this fraud's books and review them on my channel and blog is because I want to take one for the team and warn other people away from her books. Like pretty much everyone who does not live under a rock and who is not like a raving, like out of touch apologist for this old cuckoo. She's not like living anymore, but you know what I mean. This old fraud. They know she was the true author of all of these books. Like maybe she had a couple of help on the two books on which she is not the sole copyright holder. Kim is one of them. I think this might be one of the other ones on which she also claimed someone else in the copyright, but they were definitely not written by actual teenagers at all. She must have had, some kind of editor friend or a collaborator, but definitely the writing style, it's her all over. Probably 99% of these books were written by her, and they're just up to, or I should more realistically say, down to her usual terrible, awful standards. This book isn't even 170 pages long. It's just oh, terrible. Almost Lost purports to tell the story of 15-year-old Sammy Gordon, and Dr. Fraud just totally writes herself in as the all-conquering grand goddess queen of the entire universe. She's at her most obnoxious in this book. She began writing herself in as a character at some point, helping these troubled kids, as she's constantly calling teenagers, oh, I'm gonna put them up on the straight and narrow, and I'm gonna answer all of Nancy's questions about HIV/AIDS that somehow in 2 years she just never had a chance to ask any actual healthcare professionals. But I'm going to come to the rescue and tell her, oh, don't worry, Nancykins baby, you can't give AIDS to your precious puppykins, and you can't get AIDS from your darling little kittykins. I'm talking to a 17-year-old like she's a 5-year-old kindergarten baby. It's just, oh, I hate this woman so much. And in this book, this is not a diary, a fake diary like almost all of her other books are. She rarely strayed from the winning formula, so to speak. This is presented as a case study. I guess maybe she was trying to cover her ass and fall back on this. Oh, they're not meant to be interpreted as actual diaries. I just created them out of case studies, and so I'm just writing diary entries that I'm imagining my so-called patients would have written if they had actually kept journals, but they're really case studies, and maybe they're even composite characters, like when she was called on by Avon Books about it happened to Nancy. Oh, sorry if you misunderstood all this strange new material I was refusing to give a straight answer about for months. Oh, it's just taken from interviews with Nancy's buddies and her parents and her creepy, controlling Peter Priesthood boyfriend, Lou. This was never meant to be entirely Nancy's own diary. I hate this woman so freaking much. But anyway, she's just oh, I'm going to lift Sammy up out of depression and get him speaking pages out of a psychology textbook, not a real teenager. Of course, after I've read the book, I'll be able to give more quotes and specific examples and such like that. Just the overview. Oh, and I'm going to get his dad off of the evil coke, because we all know drugs are evil. Just say no. I go, God, no. Her anti-drug preaching. I can't believe I'm actually making this comparison and saying this. It was even worse than Nancy Reagan's just say no crap that I grew up with in the 80s, and she gets his parents back together because, oh, divorce is the worst thing ever. And one of the trademarks of her books, divorced parents. And oh, Sammy is effed up because his parents got divorced, and we can't have that. Good couples always stay together no matter what? But they can't be sealed together in their own little planet in the celestial kingdom in the afterworlds if they get divorced. Oh yeah, her books are full of Mormon propaganda crap, and Sammy does not talk like any real teenager besides the, like, psychological textbook quoting. Oh wow, I had no idea my body was that powerful, and these depression drugs, they could just react positively with the chemicals in my body. No way. I had no idea other kids are depressed just like I am. And guess what? When I was flipping through this, there's a character named Dory, if you might remember, or for my It Happened to Nancy videos, if you've read that awful book yourself. One of Nancy's buddies is named Dory. Yeah, I wonder, was she that lazy? She was just like randomly reusing names from book to book. Was it still in her mind? And I know people, her defenders might say, and she herself might have said, oh, of course they're not real names. I was just like giving them fictional names, which I do to almost everyone I've written about in my journal since like 93 when I was 13 years old. But so if you're making up names, why would you give the same fake name to a different character in a new book? Can't you give her like a different name, like Elena, or, like Jacqueline, or whatever, like Rhonda, whatever? Just don't reuse names. That was just stupid and lazy. Oh, and this Sammy goes on, well, not really unprompted, but of course she's miraculous, so she gets a breakthrough almost immediately. Oh, I'm so scared and hurting, Dr. B. Please help me. I don't know a damn thing. Oh, you're my beautiful, precious angel savior, and I'm gonna just like start sobbing in your office and tell you everything you want to know after initially, la la la, I can't hear you. No, I won't talk about my awful dad. He divorced me, and divorce is wrong. And so anyway, he goes on this like long backstory info dumping monologue about life on the streets, being a gang banger, like doing drugs, all this other like crap. And it's just so stupid. This is not reading at all like an actual case study or meeting with like a psychologist, a real psychologist. This is just her like her stupid little fantasy about what actually happens in a psychologist's office. And it pisses me off, sorry for the language, that she was actually credited as like PhD on these books. Her ass should have been in jail in Utah for pretending to be a psychologist, even on paper. I have a whole like planned upcoming video and blog post about reasons we know, drawn from all of her books, that she was not a psychologist, because it just demonstrating her profound, like complete, total, utter like lack of understanding, her utter ignorance about what psychology actually is, like how the mind works. Like it's just total ignorance. I'm just gonna see in the beginning, is she credited as, because I was a big surprise, and Kim Empty Inside on the copyright page, she was actually credited as the author in the small print. Is this juvenile? No, just juvenile literature. It's not like saying it's saying this is a work of nonfiction based on the actual counseling sessions. My ass. Between Dr. Sparks and a suicidal teenager, names and places have been changed at the request of Sammy's parents. Like, my ass, this was a real counseling session. And now we're getting to a brief overview of Kim Empty Inside. I had to look up the actual date of the publication. I knew the year was 2002, but I didn't know the actual, date it came out, because, I have to do this, like putting more research effort into Dr. Fraud's books than she did herself, like I did with It Happened to Nancy, trying to figure out the years the story actually took place, because there are no years given, and something very interesting happened. I mean, this is just, I'm shocked even for Dr. Fraud. The book was published April 16th, 2002, and I understand usually in the modern era, books do take a while to first, query it, but of course, like, she was already on the roster of writers, I guess, for Avon, so she was basically green-lighted, didn't have to bother with the querying process. But, editing does generally take a while, so I would really like to know when exactly this book was, like, in the editing process, like going back and forth, like pitching the idea, or like pitching the fake journal, like different, how many edits it took until finally it was, polished and signed off to be published. Because looking at these dates, I mean, maybe she was just pulling stuff out of her ass as usual, just like randomly, like meaninglessly, like not even thinkingly assigning dates of the week to, named dates of the month. But according to what I saw in the perpetual calendar, and the only years that would work for this book are 2001 and 2002. And that's going to be like very important because, like, just look at this. Kim's journal goes from September 1st to September 22nd. I wonder what happened between those two dates that was kind of a really, like, impossible not to react to. Like, if you're keeping a journal, like, how could you not mention it? Between the dates of September 1st and September 22nd in the year 2001. I wonder why Kim would leave something like that out of her journal. None of these characters in any of her books, they never mention like world events, like news, like current events, like pop culture, anything. Like, they have no reaction to it. And I can understand her detractors maybe saying, oh, they just had to like edit it out because, oh, it's just keeping right to the main plot of the disorder. But that's just a freaking cop out. I'm sorry, not sorry. Like, a real journaler mentions many things going on in his or her life besides just the main problem. It's not constructed, because real life is not constructed linearly. We don't go neatly from point A to B to C to ultimately to point Z. Our thoughts come out in fits and starts. Sometimes we're just not ready to talk about something. Sometimes we'll talk about something at great length and then like not at all, or maybe we won't even mention it because we're like non-pathologically or pathologically, depends, like dissociating about an issue. We're too depressed to talk about it, or just like other things are going on and we don't feel the need to do it. So just I'm totally lost for words. I don't even know if depending when the book was put through the editing process, like, was this like really she was assigning dates from 2001 and 2002 to the book, or she was just like randomly pulling crap out of her ass as per usual? Like, oh, I'm just gonna put these dates and put these days of the week and the days of the year together. Sorry about the vacuum in the background if that's picking up. And it's a really shallow book. Kim miraculously gets cured from her newfound eating disorder like in less than a year. Of course, the fetish, and that's in the Sammy book as well, all caps, like multiple exclamation points, just like stupidity. And Kim does not sound anything like a high school senior and university like fresh woman, just like and of course the mommykins worship. Precious mama lies, perfect. Oh, I miss my mommykins. I'm not excited about independence at UCLA. Mommy for the win. I'd rather hang out with mommy than my new sorority sisters and my new mates in my gymnastics class. She's a gymnast. It's just like freaking like stupid. And she has older twin sisters, 11 years older than her. Guess their names: Dara and Lara. What, like, if Kim were real, she would be like roughly my age, maybe a little bit younger than I am. So like her sisters, maybe they would have been born like in the sonogram era, maybe not. I mean, I do know like sonograms, like most women were not like utilizing them during the 1970s, or of course not the late 1960s, but even like then there were ways to tell prenatally if a woman was like having twins, like measuring earlier, just like feeling 2 heartbeats, like if having like symptoms of pregnancy earlier, like the stomach was like itching a lot more. So are you telling me like people, like couples, would have just lazily given twins rhyming names like in the modern era? Like what? And that's just a stupid, giving twins rhyming names is like stupid as hell anyway. No, sorry, not sorry. And frequently Kim refers to them as the twins because that's totally dehumanizing. Twins are 2 different people. They're not like one person with like different like bodies. Like, and I refuse to believe even Dr. Fraud was this ignorant. Like, even the biggest Molly Mormon out in the Mordor could not have like known what these names sound like in the modern era. There are 2 like young men in this book who appear, their names are Dick and BJ. Like, was she just totally trolling everyone, just having a laugh? Like, raise your hand if you have ever known a single Richard born after, 1965. Like, if even that late, who has ever used the nickname Dick? Or, I mean, even, like, guys, Richards born at the tail end of Dick is a socially acceptable, like, the most common nickname. I'm pretty sure they would have, like, transitioned to, like, Rich or, like, Ricky or Richie, or I don't know, whatever else. I don't think anything else is a common nickname for Richard, because like since the late 1960s, virtually no one named Richard has gone by Dick, and yet here she is, a teenage boy in like the year 2001. Maybe like, even to be generous, maybe she was like trying to set it in the late 1990s, but just like totally messed up and goofed around with the dates just because she's an idiot. Like no Richard I ever knew my age or anywhere close to my age has ever been called Dick. That's just like, so freaking stupid. And Kim develops her eating disorders like very quickly, and she's cured very quickly. She never really doesn't appear like she has any real challenges, and it's just freaking insulting. Like Dr. Fraud could not be arsed to write a book set over a long time period because, oh, maybe that would age the characters too much, and I can't risk losing my teenage audience. And I don't know how to write a long book set over like 3 or 5 years, showing a more like realistic portrayal timeline of Kim first starting to get these thoughts. Oh, I want to be better at gymnastics, so maybe I'll just not eat as much food as before. Now I'm gradually starting to get sick and having these feelings about myself dropping, like dangerously skinny, but I still feel like I'm a fat ass walking wall of pig lard at 70 pounds. Maybe I need to lose more weight. And it's just freaking insulting. I've never had an eating disorder. I mean, I've had the exact opposite problem, like struggling with like weight and being overweight much of my life. I was even like within spitting distance of morbid obesity in like June of 2017. Thank God I lost about 75 pounds. But anyway, I'm going to have a whole video and blog post about her utter lack of knowledge and understanding about eating disorders. This is insulting to anyone who is ever a real person who has ever actually struggled with an eating disorder, who has lost a loved one to eating disorders, or people who have died because their eating disorder like went untreated, or it was too late to do much to help them by the time they finally got treatment. It's just so stupid. She acts nothing like a teenager. Just I have no words. Like, her books are awful, but that's one of the reasons I kind of like I do hate reads of them. I like reading them even though I hate the writing and the woman herself, because they're fun to rip apart, and I always like laugh a lot when I make these like videos and blog posts about her. Oh, I hate Beatrice Sparks so much. Oh, and I almost forgot, this was very telling on the copyright page. Let's see, of course she's listed as the copyright holder, which like that should have set off like red flags and alarm bells and whistles like long before people finally started putting it together. Copyright 2002 by Beatrice M. Sparks. Anorexia nervosa, fiction. Weight control, fiction. Gymnastics, fiction. Universities and colleges, fiction. Diaries, fiction. And where is it? Kim, empty inside, edited in brackets, i.e. written by Beatrice Sparks. Like, finally people caught on to her damn fraud. And this is the first Avon edition, 2002. So I guess even then people kind of like understood what this whole huge fraud was about. And I would not be surprised, given what I have already read in many of her other books, sneakily slipping in like very, very like blatantly obvious Mormon references. I would not be surprised if she uses like either of these books to slip in some more Mormon references, not just like the usual types that she's already used, but like Joe Smith worships. I haven't seen that in any of her other books. Oh, I was doing a research paper and I found out about this really cool treasure seeker who claimed to find golden plates written in a language he made up out of his ass. And like he claimed an Egyptian funerary document was the Book of Abraham, about Abraham from the Bible, and oh, all this other like Mormon referencing. Oh, I hate this woman so much. Thank you very much for listening all the way through to the end. I hope you guys are looking forward to my ripping apart reviews of these books. And of course, I will also be, writing blog posts about them too. And I've got a whole bunch more Beatrice Sparks videos planned for this new year. I love ripping this woman a new one and ripping her books apart. The only reason I would recommend you read her books, like besides like taking one for the team like I do, is if you write like YA, particularly edgy and contemporary, or even more specifically like based in journal format, like this is a great lesson in how not to write that type of YA. Just, oh, I hate this woman so much. And so anyway, thanks again very much for listening. I will see you soon. Bye.